To Health, Fitness and Success, Episode 2, which is your podcast and guide to winning at everything.
I'm Marquise.
And I'm Ben Tormey.
Okay, welcome to the second episode. Today, we're going to start off with the news section, as per last time. First part of the story is... We're going to start again, so... So I'm like, no.
I am man, Mark.
Mark.
My name is Mark.
Fuck's sake.
At least it's you this time.
Someone's got to do it. Hello. Welcome to Health, Fitness and Success Podcast, Episode 2, Dere, HMB.
Welcome to Health, Fitness and Success, Episode 2. This is your podcast and your guide to winning at everything.
Hello, I'm your host, Mark.
And I'm Ben Tormey.
Okay, welcome to the second episode. We're going to start off with the news. Our first story today from the last 2 weeks is from the BBC News website. Was placed on BBC Newsbeat, which is their kids' news channel. It was also on News 24 and their other outlets. Basically, it's based off the Needle Exchange, which is a program in the UK, which is used by heroin users and other drug users that use injectables. And it's basically a place where they can go to get sterile injection kits. It was set up during the 80s to counteract the sharing of needles and the spread of HIV/AIDS. Basically, based off these needle exchanges, in the last 10 years, so from 2004 to 2014, they've seen a 650% increase in the amount of needles being given out for the use of bodybuilding and anabolic steroids. Basically, in the piece, they interview a bodybuilder. They also interview some kid who's 19 or 17. He's been lifted for a little while and talking about how he wants to get on steroids. And then it's the usual crap where they talk to an expert, talk through it and whatever. Ben, do you have any input on this?
Yeah, I mean, the article isn't too bad, I guess, since it's aimed, since it's Newsbeat, it's aimed at a younger audience, but there's a number of basic sort of errors and things that kind of perpetuate the same old myths about anabolic steroids that always get carded out. And it's not a terrible article, just could be a bit more accurate.
Yeah, I actually thought the article was pretty evenly handedly writ. Although I would take issue with the 650% rise in anabolic steroid use within the UK. I think that's probably more due to steroid users knowing that there's a place where they can go get free and safe needles.
Yeah, exactly.
Not necessarily that there's 650% more people in the UK.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, not a bad article. It's just little things like when they say here that Dave says he tolerates the drugs very well, but admits to getting flu-like symptoms and swellings after injecting himself, which of course you could explain a little bit more is down to the fact that if these things are being produced in underground labs, there's a possibility they're contaminated or there's bacteria. So it would, I guess, do quite well to maybe expand on that. But like you said, it's quite a balanced article, quite well written.
As you'd probably expect from the BBC. So not really much to comment on here other than to say it was in the news. And from a 290 people from 2010 to 2,161 2013 is quite a sharp rise in the amount of users, but over the UK it's still a tiny percentage of people.
Yeah.
So
the other thing is the kid in the article who said he's pretty lean. I think he just needs to lift some more before taking any steroids.
I think you should maybe try eating food.
Yeah. Try Big Mac. That'll probably 10 stone, 7 pounds.
Try a calorie surplus and see where you go from there. I think it might work fairly well.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, that's that age-old thing, though, of kids 17, 18 wanting to do gear without training properly.
Definitely.
Because they don't like Arnold Schwarzenegger. They don't like Arnold Schwarzenegger after 3 months, so it can't be done. So.
Well, that was the thing. I remember when I started training, I weighed about 10 stone, and I just ate a lot of food, probably too much, for like a year and a half, did nothing but eat. Like, I used to have 4 cheeseburgers for lunch every day.
Oh, yeah.
Death in pain. And I didn't think about drugs or anything like that, because I knew you just had to eat more and train hard. I don't think even after that year and a half I really knew what training hard was all about, although I did push myself a lot. I think, like you're saying, a lot of people just need to go away and put the hard work in before looking at stuff like this.
It's a learning experience. I mean, after 10 years, I'm still learning how I react to training, still learning like what's good for me, what kind of stretches are good for me, what kind of food's good for me, how much is too much food, much is too little food. I'm still learning after 10 years, and if I'm still learning, I'm sure this kid has a bit of learning to do as well. But it's all self-taught. You can talk to as many people as you want, but until you actually go through the process of training and eating, you can't really appreciate what's good and what's bad for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, right, I'll probably cover that news article. So the next one's one of yours. It's the HMB study, so do you want to take us off on that?
Yeah, so this is quite recent. It was Jacob Wilson and a bunch of other authors involved, and it's quite interesting because it was done on HMB, which a lot of people have written off as a kind of useless supplement. So if you're not familiar with HMB, it's a metabolite of leucine, basically, and it's been studied before, but it's never really, in the studies that I've read, it's always come out as a bit of a failure. But the difference here is that this study was really positive. So it was the effects of 12 weeks of HMB supplementation on muscle mass, strength and power in resistance-trained individuals. It was a randomized, double-blind and placebo-controlled study. So this was a very, very rigorously set up study. It was very difficult to really fault the methodology. And what was particularly impressive about this article was actually the results that they published showed a very significant increase in lean mass with the HMB group. So the group that actually supplement with HMB got results that you would usually associate with hormone use. So there was
steroids.
Yeah, with steroids. Yeah, so it was a tiny bit over 7 kilograms on average of gain in lean body mass in the HMB group versus a little over 2 kilograms in the placebo group, and both groups lost fat. So there's been a couple of articles written on this, so I don't really want to go into too much detail about analysing the design of the study and the results. But if you're interested in that, you can look at a great article over at Evidence Based Fitness, and there's another one at Subversity. But I guess the main problem that people have identified, and you can see if you dig into this full text, which is freely available, that they seem to have held back some data. So, there's some stuff in the reporting that wasn't, it's not explained. There's some quirks there, and it's difficult to know whether or not this is something we can rely on completely, because it's a very significant gain in lean mass. There are questions over why some data wasn't presented, and it's whether or not there's any issues with that that will determine whether or not we can take this study seriously. But at face value, It seems to show that HMB is, a very, very useful study, although they use a slightly different form of HMB.
Probably one that's going to be a product in the near future. So basically you're going to be taking HMB, you're going to be making all kinds of gains.
Exactly.
All kinds. Just while you're talking there, I just did a little bit of digging. This is, if you ever get the full text of an article, always look at they have to declare a conflict of interest at the bottom, which they have done. They're funded by Metabolic Technologies, and if you Google them, Metabolic Technologies Incorporated develops nutritional products in the United States. It offers, guess what it offers, Ben?
Does it offer HMB in the free
It does,
form?
yes. A nutrition supplement that increases breakdown in muscle and recruiting, blah, blah, blah. I mean, something like that would, I don't know how serious I take that study.
No.
But as another kind of point of interest, there's, in 2004, or, was it 2003? It was 2003, there was a systematic review of progressive resistance training. Oh shit, am I looking at the right one? Nah, I've got the wrong study. Okay.
Well, talk about that one if you want.
Basically, there's a systematic review that was done in 2004 on. I'll dig out the URL for the show notes. Basically, they looked at something like 250 different supplements on strength and size. And out of everything they pulled out two supplements that were of worth, and that was creatine and HMB.
Yeah. So creatine is a steroid, so we can't,
we can't in good conscience say to anyone to take creatine because of the horrific side effects, which include muscle strength, size gain, and of course massive creatine rage. Which is accounted for thousands of deaths throughout the world.
It just makes me so mad.
I'm just mad just thinking about it. I haven't taken creatine in must be about 5 years, and I'm so mad right now. We basically just mentioned the word creatine. So anyway, interesting subjects, interesting study is the word I'm looking for. And also, it was nice to have the full text available.
Yeah, that was cool, because, a lot of these studies, you want to dig in and find out the methodology and all of that, but then it's, a spring-your-own journal, and you've got to pay money for that, and it's not always easy, especially if you're a layperson who doesn't have any journal access. You're not a student, you don't have any access to these things. It's difficult to really form an opinion.
It's without the full text, it's almost worthless trying to form an opinion based off an abstract.
Yeah.
Because there's things that we just came across that was funded by someone who produces HMB.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is it's a different form of HMB. It's HMB free acid, which is not the usual calcium bonded HMB. So, like you said, very likely that we'll be seeing a fancy new HMB supplement out.
I'll put money on it right now. Okay, so you happy enough with that?
Yeah.
That? Okay.
I'm totally happy, yeah.
We'll move on to the next topic, which I made a rant about on YouTube. And basically, it was published in the Metro going on 2 weeks ago now, and was pretty much the day after we did this podcast. And it was a girl called Annabella something or other, Anita Albrecht, who had a piece in the Metro, that stalwart of UK journalism. It is the yang to the BBC's yin. Anyway, it's picture of obesity. NHS tells bodybuilder she must lose weight and exercise more. And basically over the piece, said she went into a health clinic when she was pregnant at the time. Is that correct?
I think, or she was recently postpartum. I'm not sure.
She was pregnant or I can't remember reading the thing again. But there was something to do with pregnancy, and she stepped on the scales, and she was 66 kilos, which according to BMI makes her obese. And then basically the whole piece is like a witch hunt over the BMI and then NHS of how this is a ridiculous measure for someone who lifts weights. Ben, do you want to chip in?
Yeah, so hang on a minute. I just had a little look in the article to refresh my memory, and it was about contraceptions and family planning, so I don't know where I got the idea she was postpartum from, but anyway, yeah. I've experienced this before where you'll have someone who, usually a fitness professional, claims that BMI is useless and that we should all be doing, I don't know, caliper measurements or DEXA scans of people to determine their body fat. Yeah, bod pod stuff. And, you know, that's all well and good, but they're forgetting that for the general population, i.e., you know, pretty much everyone in the country, BMI
i.e. 65 million people.
Yeah, exactly. BMI is just fine. And it's more ridiculous, although it's, you know, these people never seem to spot how crazy it is to suggest that it's more ridiculous to expect that the NHS should retrain like all GPs in the country to do caliper measurements or to fund, you know, using expensive equipment for what is a very, you know, was a very straightforward measurement that you can take with BMI. You know, if someone's got a huge BMI, they're sitting in front of the GP, you can see that they're obese, then you know they're obese. It's not a difficult thing to work out.
Well, basically, the way that I would look at it is, you look at Jay Cutler on one hand, and you look at an obese fat man on the other hand. Yeah. Most of these guys' life expectancy is less than average.
Well, no, you see, that's the problem, because I literally just look at their BMI. I am unable to tell the difference between Jay Cutler and a large obese man.
To be fair though, if you were to look at their BMI, Jay Cutler probably had a lesser BMI, but I'd be willing to bet that Jay Cutler would perspire quicker than the fat guy.
Yeah. But and the funny thing is, if we're talking about body composition, I do believe that sumo wrestlers have the greatest proportion of lean mass out of most athletes. Of course, they're also massively overweight, but
they're just making gains, bro. Why
they're just making gains, yeah. Lean gains.
Lean gains. They're making mad gains, bro. Eating sushi, drinking sake, throwing each other. Good program. Just try it. Guys got all kinds of lean mass.
Yeah, so as usual, I think this is indicative of a small minority of people, you know, people involved in fitness, trying to force their ideas onto the general population. You know, this is most prevalent when it comes down to food choices, attitudes towards exercise. It's all people living in a bubble who don't realise that the rest of the world doesn't work the way that they do, and it's not normal to really expect other people to just, you know, indulge your lifestyle.
Well, I think what you don't realise though, Ben, is that their bubble is correct and everyone else is wrong, so...
Yeah, oh, sorry, yeah.
I think you should probably take yourself in a corner and think about what you just said. Because, you know, these are all highly trained individuals with huge IQs.
Yeah, in certification, many of them.
Oh, I went to a weekend course, and I'm a Rep 3 PT now, bruh, so regardless of what I think. But in seriousness though, I mean, BMI for what it's used for is a very useful tool. What it's used for is large epidemiological studies where you're going through 200,000, 300,000 people and trying to pick out trends. And to be fair, those trends are solid. If you have a large BMI, you're more likely to perspire earlier than someone with a medium BMI. Yeah. It's common sense. If you're a 140 kilo bodybuilder or a 140 kilo fat guy, your heart has to work at an extra strain to pump blood around your larger mass, which means there's more strain in the heart, you're more likely to things like heart disease, which means you die quicker. It's simple as that. Yeah. If you have a six-pack and someone says your BMI is high, and you take offense to that, then yeah, I don't know what to say to you.
But you know, just accept the fact that whether or not, I mean, this is my issue, is you've got a hobby that presumably you enjoy, it's a lifestyle, in the same way that if someone enjoys smoking, they accept the risk involved with that. It might be that what you do, whether or not you perceive it as healthy with your diet and your training, isn't necessarily optimal for long-term health. You just accept that and you move on, you know. You don't make a huge song and dance about it, crying about how the NHS is, stupid and that BMI is, doesn't work. It's crazy.
Man, fuck the NHS. It's trying to make me all healthy and shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to go to America where I can pay $100,000 for a fucking, I don't know.
for paracetamol.
Yeah, paracetamol. Yeah, it's pretty stupid. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay.
To the next piece.
So the next piece was another fairly recent study. I mean, I think it was back in February now, which was on unsaturated versus saturated fats. So what they did was they made them fight each other to the death to see which one was best. It was basically, the title of the study was Overfeeding Polyunsaturated and Saturated Fat Causes Distinct Effects on Liver and Visceral Fat Accumulation in Humans. So what they did was they overfed people diets, either comprised, their fat intake was comprised of saturated fat or polyunsaturated fat, although in terms of what that actually meant in the study, it wasn't just people literally just eating saturated fat or literally just eating polyunsaturated fat. The differences weren't that great between the two groups. However, there was a marked difference between the ratios of saturated fat to polyunsaturated fats. So what they actually found was that what you might consider as bad fats, so polyunsaturated fats, have been demonized by a lot of people, and a lot of people have equally promoted saturated fats as being good. Especially when you look at things like bulletproof coffee, for instance, where you just chug lots of butter, and that's great because saturated fats are great, and there are no downsides to just eating arbitrary amounts of saturated fat, apparently.
Bulletproof bread.
But yeah, this study found something surprising, which was that in the context of visceral and liver fat accumulation, the polyunsaturated fat came out better. So that group, came out. So there was actually a correlation between the amount of omega-6 fatty acids, the relative amount, and the change in lean mass. So it was actually a beneficial change. So the more omega-6s you had in your blood, the more lean mass you tended to have. So that was surprising. And I suppose the interesting thing is to point out that the group who had the polyunsaturated intake, the saturated fat intake, were primarily getting it from palm oil. So it wasn't necessarily animal fat that they were getting. So it's difficult to make direct comparisons with, with, let's say, the bulletproof coffee, diet. But it showed that the omega-6 polyunsaturated fat diet was superior in the context of overfeeding. So in a calorie surplus, it was less fattening. And that could be for a number of different reasons. But it was interesting because, there's been a huge sort of bandwagon where people have been demonizing polyunsaturated fats and glorifying saturated fats. And I just felt that this was just a sign that we should have perhaps a little bit more balance. I don't know what you think.
I mean, balance, of course, is a terrible idea. And what you should do is just pick something and just go to completely end of the spectrum and just do that. You don't want to moderate anything, because that's clearly ridiculous. Well, from looking at the study, they got to eat muffins, which is good.
Yeah, muffins.
Everyone likes muffins. Maybe we should come up with a thing, bulletproof muffins. I mean,
it's basically just all butter shaped into a muffin.
Yeah, I mean, people like coffee. Some people don't like coffee, but who the fuck doesn't like muffins?
Hang on a minute, some people have muffins with their coffee.
Oh,
so
fucking hell. World War III breakfast.
So yeah,
coffee.
One other thing I should point out was that the polyunsaturated fat diet was actually fairly balanced in terms of the fat content. So you could even take this study to mean, shock horror, that having a balance of fat intake is kind of better for you than just,
you mean when the government suggested that we should have 30% of our fat intake as our calories coming from fat, and that should be evenly spread, 10% between monosaturated, 10% saturated, and 10% polysaturated, that they might have had a good idea?
Well, no, that's crazy, because we know the government are wrong about everything, and, it's all outdated. And
I mean, we've got a study here with 39 people that clearly states inconclusively that everyone else is wrong. And, but yeah, I mean, it's common sense, really. I mean, a balanced diet approach is probably a good idea.
Turns out that, most problems can be solved.
So I'm hugely obese and I don't exercise. Maybe if I ate less food and did slightly more exercise, I would lose a bit of fat.
And, of course, take your HMB.
Of course, take my HMB, and also down-regulate my saturated fat intake, up-regulate my unsaturated fat, bulletproof muffins. What sort of exercise should I do? Should I do HIIT, or should I do long, slow distance training, or what?
Well, no, you mustn't do long, slow distance, because you'll get fat.
Ah, shit, but I'm already fat. Will I get fatter if I do that?
Well, yeah, but you probably just, unboundedly increase your body fat until you explode.
But do I not want to make gains? Do I not want to put body weight on? Is that not?
Well, that's what the HMB's for.
I see. Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly interesting study. The interesting things are where the fat storage, the subcutaneous body fat, which is a huge indicator for chronic heart disease and metabolic syndrome, and also liver fat, which we all know is the best kind of fat.
Yeah, it's most delicious.
Indeed, anyone who eats liver will understand. So obviously Hannibal Lecter's probably studied,
yeah,
had a hand in this study.
I'll tell you what, that's a cracking series. If anyone,
I haven't seen it. My girlfriend watched it for a while. You a fan?
Definitely watch it.
We'll maybe do a little bit of that at the end. Talk about series and stuff, because there's some good stuff going on at the minute. So you happy enough with that to end there?
Yep.
Okay. We're just going to go into the topic of the week, which is a BBC News article. Selfies. Everyone loves a good selfie, especially those in the fitness world. It's titled "Selfie Body Image Warning Issued" by Helen Briggs. Basically, the play-by-play is they focus on women, because obviously men aren't worthwhile focusing on. But according to the study, women take much more Facebooks. Much more Facebooks.
Take all the Facebooks.
They take all the Facebooks. All the Facebooks are belonging to them. Basically, they take a lot more pictures to put on Facebook. And the article basically says if they look at other women's photos, selfies, it has an impact on the body image. Looking at friends' bodies has more of an impact than looking at the bodies of celebrities. Let's take some quotes out of here. The fascination with celebrities, their bodies, clothes, and appearance has all increased the pressure that people typically feel at a time when they seek to establish their own identities and when bodies are growing and changing. Young people compare themselves to the images that bombard them and feel it is their fault that their bodies compare so unfavourably. It is their fault. The more women spend time on Facebook, the more they compared their bodies with those of their friends, and more they felt negative about their appearance. Spending more time on Facebook is not connected to developing a bad relationship with food, but there is a connection to poor body image. Peter Petrea of the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow told the BBC. She added, "The attention to physical attributes may even be more dangerous on social media than on traditional media, because participants in social media are people we know. The comparisons are more relevant and hit closer to home, yet they may be just as unrealistic as the images we see on traditional media." So basically that's the gist of the article. People look at photos of people who may be in better shape, compare themselves against them, and get depressed. Ben, do you want to chip in?
There was a story a little while back, wasn't there, about a kid called Danny Bowman who tried to commit suicide after having an obsession with selfies. He He spent, most of the day taking photos of himself, and he was looking for the perfect selfie all the time. And I think he became addicted to that. He became depressed and tried to kill himself as a result.
Must be some bad lighting.
Find the right filter, yeah. Yeah, God.
I mean, some people might think it's bad that we're joking about this, but someone who takes this to the extreme, where they're taking selfies of themselves, and they get so caught up in self-image that they go to the extreme of trying to end their own life, clearly is mentally imbalanced. And it should be dealt as a mental health issue with that person, and not as that selfies are bad. I mean, if you look at the same thing, alcohol as an example, alcoholics can't control their alcohol input, their alcohol input, can't control their alcohol intake. It doesn't mean that alcohol is bad, per se. It just means there are people out there who have addictive personalities who maybe shouldn't drink alcohol. Yeah. But going on this, I mean, this is a huge topic, one that receives a lot of attention. I really don't think it warrants any attention. If there wasn't a market for the celebrity culture and the magazines, people buy it. If people didn't buy it, it wouldn't exist. People have democratically chosen for this to exist by buying things. We only really have one democratic choice really in our life, and that's what we buy. That's pretty much the only place in society where we have 100% freedom. But with the caveat of also some things are illegal but can still be bought in most cases. So if there's a big enough market for it to exist, and to exist with so much prevalence as it is, we only have ourselves to blame really for the society that we live in. You can't really blame other people for for it existing. And also, if you have a negative self-body image and you don't like your body, well, you can change it. I mean, it's not as if the information doesn't exist regarding diet, exercise, and all the rest of it, where you can have a positive influence on your own body composition. You can just look at what the government says and you'll be fine.
Just get really good at Photoshop.
Well, there's that too. Or even go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think it's more the spectrum of different conditions, and I don't think it's caused by, I don't think taking a selfie causes the issues like you said. I think it just ties into existing things like narcissism, addiction, depression. I think it's just a part of, a facet of human behaviour which, can be taken to extreme, like you said.
There's not really any need for it to be controlled as such. People always have this opinion that this needs to be changed in the media, or this is a negative thing, yet don't have any solutions as to how it would be changed or how it would be made better. I'm always wary of people who don't have a solution.
Yeah, and ultimately, human beings, we have these sort of behaviours that, fair enough, we didn't have the technology to take selfies, but, narcissism comes from the story of Narcissus, that he
loved that pool.
Yeah, he loved it. If he'd had an iPhone, you can just imagine what his Instagram would have looked like. So I think this is clearly, a behaviour which is being expressed in a novel way, but fundamentally it's nothing new. All of this stuff has existed before. It's just we didn't have perhaps, access to social media to show us pictures of other people. You'd have to wait until you got an oil painting of your friend's, profile picture or something.
The selfie oil painting.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they can. I think social.
Do you think they duct faced in the Renaissance?
yeah. Just filtering the Sistine Chapel. Get the right filter on that.
Michelangelo just putting an Instagram on her. Trying to get.
But yeah, I think social media can exacerbate all of these problems. I think it can certainly lead to depression or narcissism, but only because it's amplifying what's already there, the potential for that. So if you're the sort of person who has a lot of friends on Facebook that you don't interact with, it might be a sign that perhaps a symptom of something else rather than it causing depression. I think it just creates more opportunity for it, perhaps, or amplifies it. But I don't think it's causal in that sense.
Shit, son. I think I might be depressed. I've got 668 people on Facebook, of whom I interact with about 20.
Yeah, well, I've deleted a bunch, but I think I've got about 1,700, and
Come on, man, it's not a dick measuring contest.
I know, my girlfriend and like maybe 2 other people, and the rest are just, I don't even know who you are, to be honest.
I'm the guy at the other end of the phone talking shit. Yeah, I mean, the internet puts everything into hyperdrive, really. If you're the sort of person that, I don't know what I would have done as a teenager with Facebook and all of that available to me. It would have made things a lot more interesting growing up, I think.
Oh, definitely.
But kids are still retards regardless if they got access. Still balls of hormones with little life experience, with things to prove and whatnot. I mean, there's always been problems in society with youth and older generations thinking that this has been a problem.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet if you went back to Mesopotamia 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 BC, elders of the city would be thinking that the youth, there was a problem with it. Some new way
riding camels.
Yeah, whatever. It's an age-old problem, and it just kind of gets like 60s hippies and whatnot in that culture being stared down on it by the war generation. 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s now. You don't have to look far back to see that history repeats itself in these things.
Oh, definitely, and you've got to look at the positive aspect as well, because even I had a little joke about the whole selfie awareness, the cancer awareness selfie trend, but that did have, even though it was an acute benefit, it did raise a lot of money for cancer research, and it shows you that these things don't necessarily have to be selfish. People can use social media for good things. But like everything, there's good and bad.
I mean, it may be selfish, but everyone has some form of narcissism. Everyone has an ego. People who think they don't are deluded. And if it makes you feel good to take a selfie and put it on Facebook or Instagram, and people are willing to like it, give it a thumbs up, where's the harm? I mean, if someone wants
one prayer on many of these photos, so it's, you're literally saving a child in Africa if you like the photo.
I like so many things on Facebook. I must have saved the entire village by now. But yeah, I think that certainly with quite a lot of people I know that make up less selfie kind of pissed a lot of people off just because it was so prevalent on Facebook. But on the other hand, it raised a shitload of money, so that's a good thing, surely.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? It's, we all do selfish things, all of us, all the time. And it's just how they manifest themselves. So going to the gym and trying to look good is pretty selfish.
Totally.
So it's just, it's all on the spectrum of these things. And I think it'd be hypocritical of me to have a go at someone else for being self-absorbed when I can be just as bad as anyone else.
Let's be honest, we're both probably more self-absorbed than anybody else. Or the vast majority of people, I mean. How often do you spend in the gym? How often do you spend thinking about your diet? I mean, how often do you think about your self-improvement? And this entire fucking podcast is based on that.
Volunteering. I could be volunteering for charity, but I'm not doing that. I'm going to the gym to train. And it's like I almost want those kids to die in Africa, because I refuse to volunteer. I'd rather spend an hour.
If you really cared, you would go out to Africa and do something about it.
That's what I mean, but I'm not doing that, so...
No, and I don't think the vast majority of people aren't doing something about it, so... I don't think there's anything wrong with that, personally.
No, exactly. Well, yeah.
Someone disagree, but... yeah, so... Selfies are bad, and they're gonna kill everybody. Thanks, BBC. Yeah, so... That was the topic of the week, as marvellous as it was. So we don't have any questions for you today, because the 117 people who watched it on Facebook or YouTube didn't give us any questions. Thanks, guys.
No, they all hated it.
Well, we got 3 likes, so the 3 guys who liked it are girls. Sorry, not to be sexist. Maybe it was 3 girls. Maybe we got 3 groupies out there. Although, bear in mind, one of those likes was probably you, the other one was me, and I'm pretty sure the other one was Youssef, so...
Yeah, so we made it.
So Youssef's our groupie. Hey Youssef, how's it going, big guy? So, I think going forward, the Q&A section could be very useful for anyone listening to this podcast. Heaven forbid that you're doing such a thing.
Yeah, so Youssef, if you...
Youssef, if you have any questions you'd like to post to myself or Ben. We now have an email, because I registered one with Gmail. What up? The email is healthfitsuccess@gmail.com. That is health, HEALTH, fit, FIT, success, CUCESS @gmail.com. I'll post it in the show notes. Our podcast website is http://healthfitsuccess.blogspot.co.uk. If you want to find a link to the URL, there's a hyperlink in the menu in my website, castironstrength.com. So I think that pretty much concludes this episode. I've been Marquis.
And I've been Ben Tormey.
And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for listening again, Youssef. See you later.
Cheers, Youssef. Means a lot, buddy. Catch you later.